Hello and welcome to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. Now we're going to try something different tonight because I've been slagging. I've been doing some other things that kind of took me away from the show a little bit. But I'm going to try to go long. I'm going to try to mix the football show kind of in with the Sports Blog. And I'm going to start off with the Rams just because I'm going to talk a lot about football in the later half of the show. And so it's trying to separate a little bit. And all you can really say is it was disappointment. Kind of like when I turn on the radio these days, I'm disappointed on trying to find like a music station to listen to. And so I ended up just turning on mostly sports talk radio. And the music out here just sucks. I mean, I even looked for music before the show and try to find something different, something I can use. And even the free stuff is even just as good, as ridiculous as the stuff that's out there that you can't use. But the Rams, in a game and a team you should beat, it became the same old Rams again. And when you have no resemblance of a running game, and it's been basically 2 weeks in a row, even though first week it looked a lot nicer because Benny fought hard for yards and was getting you big first downs, getting them extra yards. But then you don't use him this week. You bring back Trey Mason thinking he's all good, and he can do absolutely nothing for you. And for the second week in a row, the offensive line can't block, but then Nick Foles doesn't help you any. And maybe with all the pressure, he's getting excited and he's trying to get it out there and throw the ball, but he's throwing the receivers 10 yards over the field, throwing every ball, it seems like, high. I mean, not Peyton Manning 5 yards or 5 feet over the guy's head high, but it seems like he's a little anxious, and why wouldn't he be? I mean, every play, Greg Robinson and Jamon Brown seem like they're getting beat. Now, you know why Roger Saffold's on the right side is for his because he's a veteran. He's going to help the rookie Ron Harvenstein at right tackle, so that probably helps the right side a little bit. But that just leaves your left side to get ate up, and that's what's been going on. I mean, there's pressure literally coming right up the middle, right through the right guard. And maybe that has something to do with Barnes too, but it didn't really seem like it. It seemed like a lot of Jamon Brown and a lot of Greg Robinson. But these guys are having big trouble run blocking. And if you can't run the ball, there's nothing else to open up. You can't open up the play-action game. And that's a lot of what this team wants to do, is a lot of moving around, a lot of showing off speed. And you can't do that if every single play you're getting stopped on the run, and then they know they could come at you with just rushing 4 guys. And it's not like this is a big bad front for Washington. Ryan Kerrigan's up there, but name somebody else. And maybe because I'm in St. Louis, I can't. But the Rams probably should have thought about maybe bringing some extra veterans, or maybe giving some of the veterans you have and work. Maybe you move around Barnes and let Rainey play. You also got a guy that's got a lot of experience in this league, playing a lot of different positions, and Garrett Reynolds. So you have to give this team help somewhere with rushing the ball and being able to make the pass game effective. But you also have to have good wide receivers. And the Rams don't have that. Your best receiver out on the field every week is Kenny Britt. Because you can't seem to get Tavon into the game. He only had 1 reception for 6 yards. For some reason, you can't figure out how to get him involved in the passing game. Then you should have maybe thought about that and got maybe a better wide receiver. Or look at a different tight end than just Jared Cook. Because Jared Cook can't hold on to the ball. But for the Rams to go out there and say Kenny Britt and Stedman Bailey are going to be our main guys, well, they've seen it last year. It didn't work. And I thought that maybe Tavon was going to get more in the passing game. I thought Jared Cook would hang on to the ball a lot more. But then it's also seen that when you kind of let a defense kind of think that they're better than everybody else, then it shows what can happen in the run game. Basically, the Washington Redskins just seemed like they were letting Aaron Donald just run right through, and they were running right by him. And the Rams' defense has never been that great at rushing, stopping the run the last few years. I mean, you could say, like, that James Laurinaitis is not a leading tackler in Rams history. Well, he makes a lot of tackles from behind. You don't see him making a lot of tackles up front or behind the line of scrimmage. Ogletree's a little different, but then there's nobody else on this team that is. When you're down to Darren Bates and Mark Barron, who basically are just blitzing guys. Or guys to make it seem like the blitz is coming and then drop back into zone coverage. You don't really have a linebacker that makes them big tackles. You have guys that are good at playing a zone defense. And when you have to have your front four win to let them win the game, and a team like Washington went out there and figured out that, hey, if we let these guys free, there's going to be open holes down the field. Go after their linebackers because you know the secondary isn't that great. But you let a third-round pick in Matt Jones, 19 for 123, 2 touchdowns. Alfred Morris, even though not a big game, had 18 for 59 yards, but had a big, long 35. And that's the kind of things that keep drives going. And then you let Kirk Cousins go out there and be a simple game manager. 23 of 27, 203, 1 touchdown. And to let a guy be that efficient when he hasn't been that efficient in a long time is troubling. And shows that you have some holes in your secondary. But they've known this and haven't really tried to upgrade. You have guys that basically have to pick off the ball to be effective on the play. And that just doesn't help you in any way. And when I think they had the ball, and I had it somewhere, 37 minutes is how long Washington had the ball. That's going to eat up your defense. The Rams only had the ball for 22 minutes and 16 seconds. Full 17 of 32. That's not efficient enough. Your leading rusher was Tavon Austin, 4 rushes for 40. Mason could only pile 26 yards and 7 rushes. Benny only had 1 rush in the game. Your big play was a 40-yard touchdown to Kenny Britt that he gets a penalty on for taunting when you're still down. And now when you kind of thought the penalties might go away, 9 for 80 this week. And you hope that they just don't fall back in that routine of getting penalties. In the routine of the cockiness going out there. And they did a lot of interviews. And of course they were going out there and defeating Seattle. But they were a little cocky about it. And that just seems like the same old Rams. But the Rams are going to have to figure out a way to use Ogletree more to stop the run, to be a guy that once the front four are basically stopped and the Lions come after you, to be the guy to go in the backfield, because Laurinaitis ain't going to do it. And maybe you pick a guy like who seems like he can do it well, T.J. McDonald. Maybe you let Mark Barron go in coverage, which might not be his strong suit. As we've seen, they don't let him do it a lot in the back. But bring T.J. McDonald down and help him and give Ogletree some help. Because rushing hasn't been the strong suit in the NFL. Yet you let a backup running back get 123 yards against you. You also let, which is going to proceed to be a top-line quarterback, throw threes for 27. They converted 8 of 16 on third downs. You're not going to win games when a team's for 50% on third downs. The Rams are only 2 for 12. you have to gain some kind of a momentum, and the Rams just didn't do it this game. And you don't see the big difference in last week to this week, other than the offensive line and maybe a couple of drop balls. But you had to, there was a play in the game where the Rams were going for it. I can't remember if it was 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, but the fullback was Jared Cook, who is one of the worst blockers on the team. He's a pass-catching tight end. When you got a guy, and maybe that was to try to fake the pass, that's what one of the announcers said, and I could see that. But you have thrown Corey Archie the ball, and he has done well. I remember a few years ago against the Saints, he caught like a 30-something yard touchdown on one of them 3rd and 1s where they fake it and do a little fullback screen or whatever. So the coaching also has to be better. And the play calling, and I don't know if Frank Sinetti's running the offense this way because that's the way he wants to run it, or is Jeff Fisher in his ear saying, maybe we should do this? Because they've stayed conservative for so long, and now they're actually trying to unleash the deep ball, and that's not working. And then your conservative thing is to either run a little bubble screen like you're a college team, or run the ball right up the middle. Or throw little short passes to Jared Cook that he can't seem to catch. And it seemed like last year the guy that did it the best in them kind of situations running the slant and stuff, like I said, was Stedman Bailey. So maybe you had to find, and I know I just said, but not as a second wide receiver, as a slot wide receiver, get him more involved in the offense. You had a guy like Brian Quick, and I don't know if it's the injuries or what's going on with him. And it sounds like injuries and trying to get back into game mode. But he's a guy that helped Austin Davis and Kellen Clemens out last year to even get close to what we did. And he got injured late in the year, and you've seen the offense kind of slow down. So there's other ways to make this offensive, I don't want to call it offensive group, better than what you've seen. But number one is running the ball. And I understand you pick these rookies to go out here and play, but a guy like Garrett Reynolds or somebody like that, or Darius Rainey, have to get in there and get a chance to at least try to see if we can get something going. Because Tavon Austin shouldn't be your leading rusher. He should be your leading receiver. You shouldn't have to put Tavon Austin in the backfield. Maybe you won't this week with Gurley coming back. But what's Gurley really going to do coming off that ACL? Are you going to run him a lot? And that's up to the Rams, and I don't know what their plan is. I'm not a big insider on that. But other guys have to get going too, because a lot of these teams do use two running backs. You'll probably see it this week in Pittsburgh with Bell coming back and then D'Angelo Williams running like he's running. But Mason has to get going. And the screen game on this team is going to have to work, and you have to find a way to get it to work. The Rams have tried everything. And they've gotten lucky a couple times because of Tavon. Because Tavon is pretty much faster than everybody else. But he can't be your only playmaker in offense. Someone else has to go out there and start making plays. And it seems like they want it to be Jared Cook. But he can't hold on to the ball. And Britt, at times, has showed it, but I don't think he's that kind of wide receiver. And that's the problem is a lot of these other teams, like Atlanta's one of them. Washington is one of them. Because signing the guy that wasn't in this game, Vincent Jackson. But there's a lot of teams that have two guys that can go out there and get the ball. And when that guy's on the field, and you only have one, he's going to be the one getting double teamed. That's basically what you've seen from Tavon Austin. It's him down the field with a cornerback chasing and a safety over top. And he's a little guy, so it's going to be hard for him to get off the line quickly because people are going to try to be physical with him to try to hold him from getting away from him. And then you have to have some kind of hold on the offensive line, and the Rams just haven't had that this season. And we'll see if Gurley coming back makes the big difference in this offense. Because there's people out there that are saying Gurley's already is in a league of his own and nobody's seen it yet because of the injury and all that. But have you put him behind this Rams offensive line yet? Yeah, he might have been at Georgia a game changer, but he's going to be a game changer against a team that can't run the ball and shown they haven't been able to do it in the first 2 games. Is he going to be able to do it if they turn it into a Steven Jackson situation where they know they can stop the pass and they're putting 6, 7, 8 guys in the box? That's going to be the big difference. That's going to be the big tell and what's going to go on for the Rams this season. But you have, for the Rams to be any good this week or beyond this season, that front 4 has to get more pressure. And you have to find somebody that can back up Ogletree and be in one of the front 7. They always say the front 7 of his defense is great. Well, really, it's the front 4, and after that, you're shaky all the way around. No matter what pairings you have in there. When you have very young cornerbacks and Roberson and Joyner. I mean, E.J. Gaines got drafted the same year as Joyner went out there, but you actually had some sense of what E.J. Gaines could do by the way he played last year. Joyner had a little bit of trouble. They were talking about moving him to safety, maybe. Now, they have also said that about, people also said they should do that with Trumaine Johnson, and actually he's came to be the best cornerback on this team when you thought it was going to be Janoris Jenkins. But Mr. Pick Six has a lot of deep balls, and then he looks around the field and acts like, oh, where's my help? Well, if you're going to be a top flight cornerback, you got to be able to get on the one-on-one matchups. Definitely when not the receivers aren't always the best receivers that are flying by him. I mean, but it's understandable for a team that have a letdown every now and then. But it's always the Rams every season. And now you're going to go into a big week against another offense that can run the ball. And have a much better quarterback I was going to say Greg Zuerlein because I got it right here with his 52-yard field goal in my notes. But Ben Roethlisberger is what I was going to say. So you're going to have to find a way to get pressure on a team that's been dominating. I mean, they've had their backup in, and he has 204 rushing yards on his own. 77 last week in the big run they had against San Francisco. And you see what happened when Washington put their backup in this week. So you're going to have to find that guy that's able to stop the run behind the line of scrimmage. Or at least at the line of scrimmage, and not every play get 2-3 yards down the field to give a team a chance to get third downs. Or you're going to have an 8 of 16 on third down game. Or you're going to have a game where the possession is 37-22 and really 38-22. So, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of Rams you see this week. And maybe it's different because it's at the Dome and they seem to play well at that Dome against the better teams. Like I said, the Saints a few years ago. But they're going to have to figure something out to sustain this because you're going into a stretch where you got a lot of good teams coming on, and you're going to have to let your offense give them a chance to score points. So we'll see what happens at the Dome this week between St. Louis and Pittsburgh. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back on the Sports Blog with some Cardinals talk right here on the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr, tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STL SN. And if things couldn't get any worse for this team on the injury front, what else do you think could have happened? So on back-to-back games, what does happen? You lose one of your best starting pitchers, maybe at the right time, and now you lose your leadoff hitter today with left hip soreness. Now they act like it was precautionary, and that's what they say about everything. They did shut Carlos down for the season, which, yay. He only had one more start, and I think it was going to be against the Braves. So, and actually he might have got that last start against Pittsburgh. But they'll find a way to fill that role. And you have a guy on here already that's probably going to do it in Tyler Lyons. I don't know where Tim Cooney stands in the 40-man, but maybe you bring him up and give him the chance maybe to back up Lyons in that game. But with Yadier going out too on Monday, I mean, how worse could it get for this team? Going into the playoffs. Going into a series where it could be a big series depending on what happens tomorrow. If Pittsburgh wins and you lose, it's 3 games. You could get swept. And now you don't have your, what they like to call Molina, like the leader of the pitching staff. You don't have that no more. You also don't have his bat in the lineup. You don't know what Carlos is going to do what's going to happen during the playoffs with Carlos, and now you're having trouble with Carpenter. And just when he was starting to come back a little bit, still had the power going, and was 8 of his last 26, 20 of his last 61, and showing that he can be one of these guys that actually hit for power. 26 home runs in a season. I think 16 were just from the leadoff spot. And when a guy can come out there and get you a home run to lead off a game, I mean, that's a good way to start for any team. And for any pitcher that goes out there and you get the lead early and they can pitch a little more comfortably. But you really can't lose any more guys at this point. Now, you can slide Reynolds right over there, but he can't lead off for you. You could try it with Hayward. He says he's not comfortable there. Didn't look all that comfortable there when he did it. And then Wong's struggling right now. And then also he was struggling when he was in the leadoff spot. Maybe you could try Piscotty the way he's been hitting, but you kind of want to keep him in the spot he's in to produce runs. I mean, what this guy is doing to save this team is remarkable for a rookie. And it was Grichuk earlier in the season that kind of took over the lead offensive role. And also Tommy Pham coming in there and playing center field, showing that he has a little pop. I mean, you've had to have a lot of help, and these guys have come up and do it. And I almost thought a lot of these guys were written off. I really thought Piscotty was written off. But I think they were just trying to get him a place to play, and the Adams injury kind of gave him a place to play. You get Halladay hurt, you get Grichuk hurt, And now you got a place for Pham to show off. And now you got to go back and look, man, with the way that this team has been pitching or been playing with Piscotty and Pham, do you really need to go and spend a lot of money on a guy like Heyward? Maybe you already have your starting first baseman Piscotty and Adams is that bench guy that you've been trying to find. But I don't know if you want these guys to be your leaders in the playoff. And Piscotty's probably going to have to. He's probably going to have to do a lot of the duties of first base. But you got to hope that Grichuk can come back healthy. Because then you might have a young kid that didn't play all that much for the season and Tommy Pham out there patrolling center field. I don't know how. I guess Heyward could do it. And you could play Piscotty and right. Because Halladay looks like he's on the way back. 2 doubles a day, a couple RBIs. And they were showing his hit speed. Hit one, the first double he hit, that they said if he would have got on there would have been at 103 miles per hour. Second double, 101. You see how they're easing him in. They're getting him out of games as soon as they can. Would you like to see not get this guy hurt again because you're losing too many players already? And Grichuk has been out there, and he's been playing some center field, and you got to feel better about that, even though the throwing program seems like it's going a little slower and slower and slower. He's shown he's still got power, and that's what you're going to need. Definitely if you got a pitching staff that's going in hurt. And here in the news that Waino's back through a simulated game. I think it was Tuesday, through another one today where they actually said he was actually doing drills to cover his position. I mean, losing a guy like Carlos that could probably been a stable in that bullpen. How would it be to get Adam Wainwright back? And just thinking that first game series, if you just go 3 starters and maybe throw Lynn in the bullpen. I guess you really couldn't do that now with Carlos out. Well, yeah, you could Jaime, Walker, and Lackey. And you have Lynn, Wainwright, Segrist, and Rosenthal in the 6th, 7th inning in them games. I mean, that's kind of like what the Royals had a couple years ago. You only have to go get guys to go 5 innings. And you got a pretty good chance of every night closing that game up. And now that the pitching's all of a sudden coming back a little bit, coming back to earth, to where it was just getting crazy there, to where the starters it seemed like they couldn't get through 6, and they were just allowing a bunch of runs. I mean, but your last bad start was really on the 18th of September. And then your bullpen, that was their last real bad game. Manus had 3 earned runs allowed. Cishek with 2 earned runs in the 18th game. Lynn only went 3 1/3. And now that it's actually come around and come back to earth, you're not as worried about the pitching no more as you are about all these players coming back. And now you got a guy like Wong struggling going down the stretch. Does seem like Peralta's back, 8 of his last 20. And he's been the guy, along with Piscotty and Pham, leading this offense. So, it's not really a big thing with Carlos getting this injury right here. It's a way to limit his innings if they are going to use him in the playoffs. But Jaime pitching 8 today. Lackey's been a workhorse all season. You know what he can do. You know what he's capable of in the playoffs. You know he's going to go out there and give you some good starts. And I think them messing with Walkup, only letting him go a certain amount of innings, kind of skipping starts with him here and there. I think that kind of messed up the way he was pitching, and that he's back on track. And that you actually got the main guys that you're going to see in that bullpen pitching well. You're almost kind of new to ease again. But then you still got Pittsburgh on your tails, to where tomorrow, if you lose and they win, that puts it at 3 games back going into the last series of the season, essentially. And the Cubs got a little lucky. They got stuck with the Cubs, or a little hurt at the end of the season with the way the schedule went for the Cardinals. Where they in the last week they see the Reds, the Pirates, and Atlanta. They had to see the Cubs and people, schedule makers. People were acting like that's a big deal. Why are the Cardinals not playing better opponents, more Central Division opponents down the stretch? Well, they have been. They played the Reds twice. They played the Cubs, and now they're going to play Pittsburgh. They just ended with Atlanta. I mean, it's not the Pirates ended with the Cardinals and the Reds, so it's not like that they're really getting hurt off in it. So you have to go out there and beat the bad teams, and hope you fare well against the good teams. But the Cardinals can't let down. I mean, you can let down a little bit because of the pitching. You can as a fan, but the Cardinals can't let down because Pittsburgh just doesn't stop losing. And they actually do have a dominant pitching staff to where they could throw Cole out there. But then Burnett's been pitching well. Lariano's still on that staff. I mean, you got a lot of guys that go out there and get the job done for them. So you got to hope that all the guys in the Cardinals are on full tilt when it comes around. And really, either one of the teams, because Lester comes after Arrieta, and you're still going to have to get Arrieta in the division series if you go against the Cubs. So you got to hope a guy like Holiday's back on track. You got to hope a guy like Grichuk's on track and can actually play and not cost you runs in the outfield along with Holiday. You got to hope this left hip thing doesn't affect you with Carpenter. And you got to hope this Piscotty and Pham stay hot. I mean, there's a lot of hope in there. I mean, there's enough sample size to show what Piscotty can do, but the playoffs is a whole different thing. And you've seen rookies go out there and have good seasons and go out there and get shut down in the playoffs. And he did it even just recently going on like a week stretch where he wasn't hitting at all. And now he's back on track. But you are playing bad teams. So maybe this weekend will give you somewhat of a sign when they go in and play Pittsburgh. But, I mean, what's your lineup going to look like tomorrow with no Carpenter? You don't really want to know if you want to keep extending Holiday the way you are. Grichuk's probably back out there, I would think. No Yachty in there. And do you still want to give Wong some more time off? And it is Sunday. You know Matheny loves playing around with the Sunday lineups. Maybe we'll see Greg Garcia and Pete Cosmo. That'd be a fun game. And Peter Borges in center field. That would take the cake. Maybe have Reynolds in there. Well, Reynolds is going to have to be in there third. Maybe throw Moss in there too. Which, he was fine for a while. Moss, I mean, it was... Until you see what Comiskey can do, you can never say. But at the time of the trade, it was a smart trade. It's what the Cardinals needed. And he went on a tear there, and then as soon as I mentioned it, him and Reynolds both slowed down. But now it just seems like he can't get his timing together. Like he's trying too hard. Like maybe he is 100% healthy now, and now he's trying to go out there and prove himself. I mean, either he's swinging way ahead of the ball, even off fastballs, or he's way behind the ball. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a guy that's usually, I mean, he strikes out like doesn't hit with our high average, but he's nowhere near the ball. I mean, this is a guy that can hit a lot of home runs, and he's nowhere near the ball. And it kind of looked like that for Peralta when they said he needed some time, and now it seems like he's back. But Peralta's a whole different hitter than Moss, so we could expect it, but Moss is nowhere near it. And that's going to, going to the 25-man roster, it's going to make it hard. Definitely when you got to see who you're going to have in the bullpen. Definitely with Wainwright may be coming back. And then also, does Matheny keep the veterans and see Cech or Broxton? Or does he throw a Tuilov on there? You know, probably most likely that in the division series, one of the starters is gonna be in a bullpen. So that's an extra reliever. And I'm just so worried that it's Wacha and it's gonna be the Michael Wacha, Shelby Miller thing. Even though maybe they're at a point where they're not gonna do that. Maybe that they think they could stretch Wacha out since he was injured, didn't pitch a whole lot last year. And then the year before that, even though with college and the minor leagues he did pitch a lot in the playoffs, it's not like he pitched a lot of innings in 2013. So hopefully they feel like they can stretch him out. But the hard part is going to be going to the hitters. Because even if they have 10 pitchers, that's still only 15 hitters, and you're going to have your top 9, or your top 8, excuse me. So it does leave you, in that situation, 6 or 7 guys to play with. But you got to have Cruz for a backup. They might even have to take a third catcher just in case they don't know where Yadi's at. You got to have a backup center fielder, and you got to have Cosmo Garcia. And then you got a big stretch where you got Adams. Depends on what you do with Piscotty. You have Reynolds, you have Moss, Cosmo Garcia, Jon Jay, and Tommy Pham. I mean, that's a lot of guys for a short amount of spots. And Matheny's a loyal guy, so you don't know in a sense of what he's thinking of if he's going to run with a Jon Jay. Because Jon Jay, I mean, he's a 280, 270 hitter. But he has a really good pitch hitter. And you need guys to get on base when you want them to go out there and pitch hit. Or pitch hit to score runs. That's why pitchers get taken out a lot when runners are on base or in scoring position. But Garcia has also shown that he can be a good pitch hitter. So do you trust in that faith, but can you use Garcia early just in case an injury happens to a guy like Peralta? So I know the Cardinals get out of their computers and get all their stats going, and they'll figure it out. But just looking at it, it's really, do the Cardinals go for power or do they go for speed and defense and hope their top 8 get it done? I don't know if I did mention Peter Borges earlier, but I don't think I mentioned Peter Borges in there. Maybe is that one of your outfielder guys that can run? He's shown he can have a little bit of pop here and there. So to use him over Jay, which I probably hope doesn't happen. But it's also a thing it could. He could also get it over Pham and be the 5th outfielder if Piscotty goes to first base. So there's a lot of variables and a lot of moving parts that the Cardinals have to deal with. And I don't know what's more important, if it's the pitching staff that's more important, or if it's getting the lineup to the right way to actually score some runs. Something you've been having trouble doing all season, but if the pitching staff's where it is and where it has been over the last week or so, is it more about defense? Is it more about making sure you make every play, making sure you get the outs in the late innings when you have to bring certain guys in there, guys that basically come in or get ground ball outs in Manus? Or do they go with, we need to score as many runs as we can, so we have to have a guy like Reynolds on here? Or a guy like Adams, even though maybe he's not all the way right yet. And I think it would be Reynolds over Moss, just if they had to go in that situation, because Reynolds could play third, and now you see something like the hip tightness today with Carpenter. He hasn't played, that's been a pretty good pickup for the Cardinals, definitely, and him playing all the different positions, and you really ain't heard about him making a bunch of errors. I mean, I was looking at the other day and couldn't believe the amount of errors that Wanga Carpenter had. So that he's just a guy to go out there, and the only thing you hear about him is that he strikes out a lot. I mean, that's good as long as he's going out there and making the plays on a pitching staff that needs him to do that. So maybe you do keep a guy like Reynolds just for that reason. I mean, I think the Cardinals even once threw him at second base of the year. I'll have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure he played an inning at second base. And hey, if that works, that's what I want him doing. So, I mean, you can play any position he wants as long as he's used in an effective way to help this team go down the stretch. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back. We're going to have the Hometown Rundown and Weird News next on the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowles here with you. And man, I just took a break, went and got something to drink, and was looking at got the UFC on in the house, and boy, Roy Nelson is getting to look like a big fat basher. And that's what I was laughing at as I came back to the show. But all right, let's get into it. It's weird news. And a Domino's in Berkeley County, Florida made a strange delivery to a resident. And a box of chicken wings was not chicken wings at all, but 2 stacks of money totaling nearly $1,300. Mike Vegas, a bartender at AT&T Park, thought he was going to have a night off, so he ordered pizza and wings, but when he got called into work, he just stuck the box of wings in his fridge. When Vegas came home around 5 a.m., he opened the box to find the money inside. Vegas said the driver had called back looking for the money but ignored the calls because he was at work. Vegas returned the money and updated the story by saying the driver is safe and keeps his job. Money is back at Domino's. I was offered free pizza for a year. Bonus karma should drop by soon. So I guess that's his free pizza he's talking about there. And I wonder how much free, does he get like one a week? I mean, I don't care what you get, but I wish they would drop some money off of my house. Maybe you take a little bit off the stack. You say, hey, maybe you don't want to get the driver fired. You just get all the money back and hope you get free pizza every day for a year, for a week or 2 a week or something. That would, maybe both days on the weekend. But who puts money in a pizza wing box? Like, don't you have a safe or a deposit box or something at your work where you put your money? I mean, that just doesn't seem like the smartest thing for a place to keep money. And what does this lady's boss say about that when he comes there and sees it? So, that's a nice story from Domino's, and they should come by my house more often. Alright, in North Carolina, a man is accused of selling a crushed up Pop-Tart to an undercover cop trying to pass it off as crack cocaine. Cameron Mitchell, 30, of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, was making a delivery to a convenience store in the town of Halifax when he met with an undercover agent. He allegedly agreed to sell crack to the man for $20, but planned to hand over the crumbled up bits of Pop-Tart instead. Authorities tested evidence and it came up negative for cocaine. Agents later found Mitchell's delivery truck at another store. He was taken in for questioning and admitted the whole thing, saying he needed some extra cash. He was charged with selling or delivering a counterfeit controlled substance and creating a counterfeit controlled substance. So for selling one and creating one, I don't think that's really, he didn't really create it. I mean, the cop got what he got. I mean, that's the cop's fault for not looking at it and knowing. So but that's just the way to get somebody. That's the way they do it. That's how they're going to do it. Try to see who the middleman is to take down a big man, and all this guy did was walk into the convenience store and pop open a Pop-Tart and hand it to you. So he's going to get charged for it, but hey, he's trying to make some extra money around it, and let's hope it's not undercover cops. I mean, you have to do something every now and then to make a little extra money. Look at me, I'm trying to make someone a stupid sports podcast. But hey, you never know. So, that is a pretty funny story, though. That guy, they wouldn't even think about doing that. And maybe he just thought it was some old, stupid-looking motherfucker who just, and wow, that's the first time I cussed on the show. But, just some stupid guy that just, he thought he could pass it over. And, you know how the cops dress. They dress like old, beat-up hobos trying to buy some crack on the street. So, Now, this story offends me as a left-hander. But, I mean, I could see why this teacher would think this in some ways. An Oklahoma mother alleges that a teacher at her 4-year-old son's school was told her son to stop writing with his left hand because that's the hand that Satan uses. Alicia Sands said she asked her son, Zane, who normally writes with his left hand, why he was writing with his left hand to complete his homework. I just asked him, is there anything that his teacher ever asked you about his hand? And he raises his left one and said, this one's bad. When she asked the teacher at the school for an explanation, she was allegedly sent an article describing left-hander users as evil, unlucky, sinister. The article cites the devil as one of the worst offenders of using his left hand. What more proof do you need? And I should have looked up more of the story to see what happened to the teacher. But I kind of got lazy on the weird news because the story is so great. I feel like I could talk about it for hours. Because obviously it's a woman who thought this. Because hey, I like left-handers. I mean, not Randy Choate at all times, but I like Kevin Seacrest. I like Jason Hayward. So, but I take offense. Because some left-handers are good guys. I know some left-handers are good guys. I think Michael Stephen Bowlesby's a left-hander. He's a good guy. I mean, I could see the sinister part and stuff of what they meant by that. Look at me. But, wow. I mean, just a teacher would even say that to a kid and just thought it was okay. And this must have been in the hillbilly parts of Oklahoma. But just to think that you could tell a kid that, hey, this is the hand that Satan uses, so don't use it no more. And in a preschool. And I guess mold them at a young age. And, but I just don't get it. They didn't even thought that was okay. For a teacher to even think that way, I won't even think I would ever think that a teacher would be that rude to a student. I just thought, you know, they're rude to parents when parents get rude to them, but usually most teachers are pretty polite people. And I mean, not all of them got in the right business, but I guess you could say some of them did. And I didn't have all the best teachers in the world, but I did have some pretty good teachers. And I wrote left-handed, and maybe that's why I thought some of the ones the best. Maybe I thought I was Satan, and that's why I was using my left hand. Well, let's move on from that. All right, let's get to the hometown rundown. As in the Frontier League Championship, the River City Rascals were swept 3-0 against the new champion Traverse City Beach Bums, losing in the championship for the second year in a row. In the days you had offense, you didn't have relief pitching. On the days you didn't have offense, you didn't have starting pitching really to the last game. And that was the story of the River City Rascals for the whole season. Their bullpen actually did start holding up the last week and even in the playoffs a little bit. But when you play a team that's better than you, and then your wear and tear start to show, that's what's going to happen. But for that team to keep going out there, and I think it was 5 of the last 7 or 5 of the last 6 that they've been in the championship, and to go out there and do what they do every year, which you know they're not making a bunch of money out there in O'Fallon, but they keep signing players, keep their good players around, and actually give you an entertaining show, 56-40. I mean, that's a pretty good winning percentage for a team. So it's kind of sad you only actually got to see one game of the championship. At least you got to go out there and see the game of the championship. I mean, it's not everywhere that you get to go see an entertaining event, and probably for a great price out there. But it's kind of cool to see that the River City Rascals are doing well, and a St. Louis independent team. And there's other ones that I've been looking up that you don't hear much about. And I was saying that you hear a whole bunch about River City. But it's nice to see out there they're going out there and doing well, even though they lost in the championship. St. Louis FC played this week as they ended its inaugural season with a 2-1 win at Worldwide Technology Park against Louisville City FC, which they're trying to start a rivalry calling this the Kings Cup, in which the St. Louis FC run, in front of another sellout crowd of 5,662 people. They finished with an 8-11-9 record out of the playoffs. FC did have to come back to score in this game as Louisville City scored first in the 11th minute to make it 1-0, but in the 42nd minute, Kingsley Bryce, who was one of them guys that you got from Chicago Fire, this was kind of his show-off game. It played pretty well all season when you had guys like Musa and Hardware with injuries. But Kingsley Bryce got the ball to Jameel Hardware to tie the game at 1. In the second half, with both teams putting up a lot of scoring chances, including 2 missed in a row by Louisville FC. They were good shot. Kingsley Bryce scored in the game for FC on an assist from Jordan Roberts in the 77th minute to make it 2-1. FC would take the win from there. Goalie Alex Ross, in his first start in goal this season, made 3 saves in the win. And there's a team that really has been entertaining down the stretch, but gave you a lot of entertaining games really early in the season. They had a little lull in the middle of the season. Seems like they had a lot of bad, slow second halves. But the last 2 games, they started to put the pressure on and started to actually make a little bit of a difference offensively. And hopefully they can build off this. A lot of sellout crowds out there for that soccer game. And it's a lot different than River City Rascals, who are competing against teams that are close in Illinois and also the St. Louis Cardinals. So you really don't have to compete nobody else in soccer if you're St. Louis FC. But you hope they can build on this, get some better players, get some more money flowing through there, and hopefully they can make the playoffs next year. But nice to end on a winning streak, definitely at home. Now I'm going to get to this FIFA. There's more FIFAs going on. And basically all it is everybody's favorite guy, Seth Blatter, who basically has been corrupt since the beginning because of somehow getting Olympic Games to go to Qatar, where it's 120 degrees and where people were talking about they're going to have to make fake rainstorms to keep it cool. But now the Swiss Attorney General has involved as they've opened a criminal proceedings case against the FIFA president, Sepp Blatter. He was questioned Friday on suspicion of criminal mismanagement as well as suspicion of misappropriating of FIFA money. Swiss authorities say that the UEFA president, Michael Polanyi, was also being questioned as a witness over 2 disloyal payments of 2 million Swiss, and it looks like francs, from Blatter in 2000. I should have looked that up. See, that's where I go wrong sometimes. But I actually did get to a lot of my notes. I feel good about this one. We're going to keep going for a while, too. We got a lot of football to talk. In 2001, from work being done between 1999 and 2002, Polanyi's personal advisor, Polanyi, the personal advisor for Blatter, also his former mentor, Blatter was Polanyi's former mentor, was also favored to succeed Blatter in the 2016, vote. Under Swiss law, a payment is declared disloyal if it's against the best interest of the employer, in this case, FIFA. Polanyi will have to explain why the alleged payment was not made until 9 years later. The Swiss prosecutor said police searched and seized data from Blatter's home. The allegations suggest authorities suspect Blatter of criminal mismanagement of FIFA money to shore up his own power-based political enshrinement, if not taking the money himself. According to the Swiss Attorney General's statement, Blatter manipulated FIFA contracts, including one in 2005 with then Caribbean Football Union president Jack Warner, the former FIFA vice president who was indicted in May on corruption charges in the U.S. and awaits extradition. There's a suspicion that in the implementation of this agreement, Joseph Blatter also violated his fiduciary duties and acted against the interests of FIFA, the Swiss Federal Office said. Blatter's United States-based lawyer Richard Cullen denied his client's wrongdoing and said he was cooperative, but the statement appeared to focus on the Warner contract and nothing to the $2 million payment to Politan. Blatter is the first person to be formally quizzed as a suspect in the Switch case which FIFA investigated last November when it complained about possible money laundering in the 2018 and 2022 World Cup bidding contestants won by Russia and Qatar. His right-man hand, FIFA Secretary General Jackie Valky, was suspended last week after being implicated in a scheme to sell tickets for the 2014 World Cup on the secondary market. And this is why you don't put politics in charge, because this is what they do. They mess up sports. That's what all politicians do. They mess up everything, literally. But when you involve them in sports, they always mess up sports. I mean, there was actually a football league, and he's not really a politic, but he is now. And he's always selling us something that Donald Trump ruined. And there's probably a lot more things that a lot of other politicians got involved in and ruined. The St. Louis Stallions, the expansion team for St. Louis in '93. I think that was when Carolina came. But every one of these guys were called football politicians. Football politicians. I mean, that's a job. I go sell soccer, I guess? Or I get involved and act like I'm a big deal because I know how to talk. It just isn't, and they're all president, and all the politicians are president of these leagues. I mean, one with the Palatinis, the UEFA. The one guy just got suspended. The Jack Warner, who was the Caribbean football league owner. I mean, these are all guys that had nothing to do with any proceedings for FIFA before. They were just politicians that got involved and got hired to lead the things. And that's what politicians also do, is they also try to get political gain. By basically selling the World Cup games to Russia and Qatar. If I remember right, the United States said we're not getting involved in a bidding war. So it was kind of already a complaint right there from the United States. And then you heard about all the things in Russia, yet they still got one. And then Qatar, like I already said, 120 degrees at the time. And they were talking about making fake rainstorms and finding ways to make it, I guess, enjoyable. I don't know if that's going to happen. I heard it from them trying to build all that stuff. That millions and millions of people are dying. So I don't know how you get out of that situation. I mean, they're probably going to have to rebid that. And hey, hopefully the United States get it. But, I mean, I wouldn't go. I mean, am I going to go watch soccer? I'm not saying that I wouldn't watch St. Louis FC soccer. But am I going to go pay tons and tons of money for soccer? I'd pay tons and tons of money and hope the Cardinals win the World Series. But, yeah. I just don't understand it. When you know you're going to get politicians involved, and this is what's going to happen. And they let politicians take over. And they know how to do all this little money scheming from having to build up their campaigns for so long. And they figured out how to do it to mess up a whole sport. And it wasn't just one of them. It was all of them. Led by probably Sepp Blatter himself, as it looks like. But he got his former mentee involved and his personal advisor. He got another guy, the former FIFA vice president, involved, and now that guy's going to jail. In jail in the United States already, waiting to get extradited after, I think it was Trinidad and Tobago tried to get the charges dropped against him. But just because they know how to sell themselves and they can tell you that they can sell them sport, doesn't mean it's going to happen. And I hope this never happens in any of the leagues because they already try it, like they do with baseball on steroids, like they're trying to do with the DraftKings leagues. I just hope that somehow it's always stopped and it never happens. Alright, another story from this week is Pete Rose met with Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred on Thursday in New York and was told Manfred would decide on his request for reinstatement before the end of 2015. The meeting was held in MLB offices in Manhattan. Rose met Manfred and his reps for a little less than 2 hours, making his case for reinstatement, but received no indication on how Manfred planned to rule. Now, as the more I look at this and I look at these rules, like I'm kind of like leaning 50-50 now on if he should be reinstated or not. Before I read like some of these reports, like in June, it was reported that new info discovered in documents that show Rose apparently gambled as a player in his career, and he said he wouldn't comment it until he talked to Manfred about it. It just kind of seemed like he was kind of ducking and dodging the question, and didn't want to talk about it because it was a new report that was found out, and oh man, they found something else on me. And he's kind of been sneaky about it, and I don't know if I think with doing all that, if he really deserves to get that chance to be within guys that maybe not all did the right way. You'll never really know about who did what. Kind of like this new 30 to 30 came out about the cocaine epidemic back in the 80s. And then you had the steroids, of course, at the end of the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And now you got guys that they don't know if they want to put in the Hall of Fame, or they don't know if they should be in the Hall of Fame because they played in an era where they could have done it, but you can't tell if they did it, but it seemed like they did it because of their stats. And it even affects guys where they're not even getting on first ballot just because they played in that era. And guys are saying, I'm not voting for them on their first ballot just because they played in the steroid era and we don't know if they're involved in it. But this is a whole different thing that also damages the integrity of the game and should just be treated like some of the steroid issues, and maybe like the Black Sox scandal where them players are still banned, where they tried to get Shoeless Joe Jackson unbanned and the league office said no. But that he didn't admit it at all is a thing that's kind of bugging me. And then it took him so long to admit it. But I guess there's a statute of limitations there and then he probably didn't really care. And then maybe somehow he thought that he finally had a chance, so let's try to get it out there and see what happens. So, I don't know. Does he deserve it because what he did on the field? Yes. But did he break the rules and lie about it for 20 years? Yes. So it kind of puts me at a point that where I don't know which way it would go. And I guess I'm at the point where I'm like, he has served way too long. And you're already involved in him with certain things like the All-Star game. You involved him in the 50 greatest players thing. I mean, you use him when you need him. So I kind of think you need to give him a chance. And hey, let the people vote him in. Don't say he gets right in. Make the people vote him in and see what the voters say now. I think it's time to turn it over to the voters and see, hey, maybe there's a reason they're there for their opinion and see what their opinion is. And maybe this never comes to fruition to where you have to worry about it. But you're kind of glad that Manfred is going to actually rule on it because Bug Seily's had, I think, since 97 to rule on it and hasn't said a word. I think that Pete Rose actually met with him and didn't meet with him until in the 2000s. So you're glad you're actually going to hear something. And he kind of reacted to that Shoeless Joe thing, so why not the Pete Rose thing? All right, so the Blues played the Blackhawks tonight, and are we going to talk preseason hockey other than Terry Segal staring it up? No. The prosecutor overseeing the sexual assault case said that the accuser's mother lied about the fighting evidence bag in her doorway. The district attorney said that the rape kit had been accounted for and was a hoax perpetrated by the accuser's mother. The attorney for the accuser's family also quit after holding a news conference Wednesday to claim evidence had been tampered with. So who are they saying evidence is? Who's tampering with the evidence? That's what I want to know. Are they trying to say that every cop's a Blackhawks fan or something because they're from Chicago? Sometimes people just do their job. I mean, sometimes they just do their job. They do what they're supposed to do. That's their job. And because it's a sports player involved, and now you got a hoax perpetrated by the accuser's mother, that's from the district attorney. It kind of tells you, this will womanize some more. Bitches is crazy. And are they trying to say that because it's a sports guy that they're just going to ignore it, and maybe that's why they're trying to get it on the forefront? I mean, I just don't understand why they would do that. And the attorney quit, and if he says the evidence has been tampered with, why wouldn't he try to go and try to fight that? Or was the attorneys tampered with? Was the evidence tampered with by the accuser's family? Was he lied to? And now he doesn't feel like he should take the case. I should have got into it a little more, and it kind of just popped up on me, and I wasn't going to talk about the attorney thing, and then I see it. But there's no real winners in this, because his reputation is tarnished, and there's always going to be that thing in the back of everybody's mind, just like there is with Kobe. That what if he really did do it and got off with a sports star? But if this lady lied, and if this lady's mom is doing this to try to get it more known, I mean, wouldn't that just be a crazy story? Something like that you never heard of before? And maybe that does keep Kane on the good side of everything, just because they can prove that, hey, these people were off the wall before I even was with this chick, or even if I was with this chick at all. So I bet for a young kid like he is, I bet this is just crazy thinking about it. I mean, I think him and me got to be right around the same age. And if I had something like this, man, I'd be going crazy. And he's got to go out there and actually try to do a job he gets paid a lot of money for. Like, I don't even know if I could do my measly job. I mean, it's not easy work, but it's not hard work. If I had something like this weighing over me at all times. So it's just crazy to see like that. These things either could happen in a bad way to where he actually did it and that he's a professional player and maybe thought he could get away with it, or if these people are just making this stuff up to try to go at him and try to extort him and try to ruin this guy's life for no reason. Alright, next we're going to hop into it with a lot of NFL, and maybe I even come back and say the football show. I don't know. I haven't decided on that part yet. But that's going to end this portion of the sports blog right here on the Greater STL Sports Network. See you in a couple seconds, matter of fact. Hello, and welcome to the football show on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bolsey here with you. Tweet me at rbolseyjr. Tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STL SN. Just search it on Google, Greater STL One Word Sports Network. You'll find the Facebook page and probably the Ustream account. If not, it's on Twitter. It's on Facebook. You'll find it. And we'll start off by just, man, these first 2 weeks of the NFL, including the Rams. We'll get to a lot of the Rams going to Pittsburgh and a lot of that. Maybe talk a little more about the Redskin game. But just to think that, like, Indianapolis is at 0-2. You have players like Breeze going out, Tony Romo going out. You have a controversy in Cleveland over Johnny Manziel and Josh McCown, something you thought you'd never be talking about. I mean, it's kind of been a good couple weeks. The running's down. You can't really tell because the scores are still up. Unless you had 10 points this week and I see two teams. Oh, 3 teams because the Colts, oh man. Now I'm mad because The two teams with 10 points this week were the Rams and everybody's favorite Ram, Eagle, Sam Bradford. And why does he look like a deer in headlights? That's just something you never would have thought you would see from Bradford. Never mind. And if they traded away all their talent and let all their talent walk and try to build around a guy like DeMarco Murray and guys that never have the team really built around them. Sam Bradford. They really thought that they were just going to let go of a lot of these guys and just, they'll be fine. And I really think that if he would have somehow found a way, Chip Kelly, to get Marcus Mariota, he would have done it. But then you see some of these teams that are playing well. The Jets. Did you expect the Jets with Ryan Fitzpatrick to be 2-0? To play as good as they have this season? And with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And then another team that when I was talking this week, Rex Ryan really did a lot of the talking. But they put 32 down. Don't look at that game and say the Patriots, 40-32, that was a good game. That was not a good game. Buffalo came back at the end a little bit. It might have been a fun game. But in the beginning, the Patriots took over that game. And it's just crazy. Like a lot of these teams that you look at now actually have quarterbacks. And what do the Rams and some of these other teams not have are quarterbacks. I mean, the Jets are doing it with defense, what they did with Rex Ryan. Now you go get a guy like Todd Bowles. He gets another game manager like what the Jets won with before, Mark Sanchez. And he goes out there and just has the defense to shut a team down like Andrew Luck. Like it has to happen this week for Andrew Luck. I can't see it not. But then you have a guy like Peyton. I've never seen Peyton Manning actually do this before. And it's kind of weird. But he throws the ball 5 feet over everybody's head. His defense starts winning the game. So then he drives down the field to win the game. And it looks like the Peyton Manning that we've seen the first 2 weeks was a whole different Peyton Manning. Looks like he came back. And he doesn't get a lot of work in the preseason. He doesn't get a lot of work in practice. So maybe these are just his feeler games. You got to feel it out a little bit, see where he's at, try to get the arm strength where he wants it. Supposedly 2 of his fingers were numb. Some Chris Carpenter type stuff. But he's still going out there against a good defense in the Chiefs. And they still got to 31 points. I mean, a lot of that's defense. Because they don't have a resemblance of a running game with C.J. Anderson or Ronnie Hillman. But somehow they get it done. And some of these teams are like that. The Chargers are another one that seemingly every year get it done without a running game, even though they lost last week to the Bengals, who got somewhat of a running game with Jeremy Hill and Bonnie Bernard. But pretty much, it's been Andy Dalton. And you've seen with the Steelers' defensive thing, the 49ers losing all their defense when they're playing to you. They really, if you looked at the stats of that 49ers-Steelers game, the 49ers offense didn't play that bad. They didn't have a resemblance of a running game, of course. And then they lose 43-18. And then you really did have some exciting games with Drew Brees going down. You had Jameis going out there, getting his first win against the Saints in the Dome. And then you had Johnny Manziel versus Marcus Mariota with Johnny Football coming out on top, 28-14. So there was a lot of interesting games last week. And even with college, too, now even with some of these teams and some of the ridiculous spreads that some of them get, I mean, it's hard to go out there, and if you were on a betting website where you had to parlay some of these games, it would almost be impossible to do. You would never know. Like, there was so much betting on the Rams game for the Rams when I think they were up to 85% of the bets, and look what happened there. The Colts are another one, and they're actually an underdog this week. I think we'll talk about that later. But man, there's just like they always say, there's parallel. There's a lot of parallel. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of parallel. I mean, if you go around the list and see where these players, some of these players that or some of these teams were at, that a lot of them do have pretty good quarterbacks, and we're stuck with Nick Foles. Even though this week the Saints are stuck with Luke McCown. Someone tweeted out, I think it was Andrew Siciliano tweeted out that Josh McCown and Luke McCown had started a game together since I think it was 2002. Maybe that's too long. That would have been a lot of years in the NFL. Maybe it was 2007. I should have wrote that. See, I do bad things. I talk about something now, and I had the date in my head earlier, and now I don't remember it. But oh well. But now you got two brothers going out there, and the Josh McCown's getting the start over Johnny Manziel. Was a big story coming into this week. So it's crazy to see how everything comes around. And when you actually have some kind of quarterback play and go out there and put talent around your quarterback, that any of these teams have a chance. I mean, he wouldn't expect like a team like the Raiders to go out there and put 37 points up against the Ravens. But they did it because they have somewhat of a quarterback game. Derek Carr showed he's a pretty good talent, and there's no reason they would have got drafted. Well, he actually fell out a little bit. But the Raiders drafted him to be a starting quarterback. But they put talent around him. Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree. Finally got rid of the trash that they've had at running back for so long. And actually try to get more talent around than just keep staying with the same old guys and saying it's going to get better. But you see it's opening up for a team like the Chiefs, that a guy like Travis Kelce is starting to catch a lot of balls because now they got so much resemblance with Jeremy Maclin out there. I mean, then you see a team like the 49ers, who, even though they only scored 18 points on offense, a lot of it is because they had a big play receiver, a big play for Torrey Smith to even score some points. But if you do things like the Eagles and let all your players go, you let all your players go, or you're like the Rams and you just try to fill in what you need, this is what's going to happen. I know it's worked for Tom Brady for so long, but you don't have Tom Brady. You have Nick Foles. I mean, I don't even know who the Bills got at right receiver, but their offense has been doing pretty good. And they let go of Fred Jackson and C.J. Spiller. And they're running game for LaShawn McCoy, who hasn't been playing like great. But a guy like in Cleveland, like Travis Benjamin. So it kind of really what it kind of shows is if you build around some of these quarterbacks, it makes your team a whole lot better. And maybe some of the Rams will look at. I mean, there's still guys like Aaron Rodgers who actually have great wide receivers, and Jordan Nelson, and guys can go out there and get the ball, and Randall Cobb. I mean, sometimes you don't understand the whole Giants thing when they got their two talented receivers out there. And they're not getting the job done on offense, but partially because it's hard to open up the pass when you don't have a running game. Unless you're Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or somebody like that. There's not many teams that are going to do it. There's not many ways to win. I mean, DeMarco Murray, I think, had 11 rushing yards in 2 games or 9 rushing yards in 2 games. That's why you see a team go out there and lose to basically Brandon Weeden and the Eagles. That's why you see a team like the Seattle Seahawks go out there and go 0-2. Because the only thing they got is a running game. I mean, you made the Rams' defense look halfway good. Like, we really thought that Sports Illustrated offer was going to be 11-5. So, I mean, this is crazy. I don't understand it really with the parallel in the NFL, and it kind of makes me mad because I kind of want to be a betting guy sometimes. I want to go out there and try to make myself a little extra money, and then you go out there and you see the spreads, and you're like, man, I would have picked that one. I would have picked that one. I would have picked that one. I'm a homer, so I would have picked the Rams like an idiot. And I actually think it's fun, and it actually has been a revolving door with some of these playoffs where other teams are starting to get in. You know, the Chiefs had a long while. You've seen teams like the Lions get in. The Chargers seem like a team that get in a lot. You see the Dolphins, they always have a chance. But it would be kind of fun to see some of these teams get good that you haven't seen in a while. The Raiders. The Jets. Because it does make for some intriguing TV to spotlight the games in New York and stuff. And it would be intriguing TV if we could have a good team in St. Louis. But it also is kind of intriguing because you see a upstart defense like the Jets with Ryan Fitzpatrick and a quarterback, and maybe they can go up against one of these teams like the Broncos or the Patriots, or even what they did 20-7 to Andrew Luck and the Colts. I mean, that's kind of fun for me to see. I mean, to look at the score and see it, but I mean, if you watch the game, you know it was. But it's kind of fun to see the Patriots actually have to score 40 points to win a game against the Bills. It's cool to see Johnny Manziel go out there and spark his team and maybe give some hope in Cleveland. So I like to see some actual parallels, some actual switching up. You know, it'd be different for the Rams to do anything different. And I'm really riding them hard here on the show, but when you know your struggle's been offensive line, and you've only drafted offensive linemen one time in the first round, and you've got all these first round picks on the defensive line, and then you also go out there and use a lot of your picks on safeties and and I know that cornerbacks and safeties aren't a dime a dozen, like sometimes offensive linemen are, where you can maybe a guy that falls down because he went to, you know, a lower college, and then you can go out there and train them a little bit. But the problem is we're throwing these guys right to the fire. And it isn't working. And I don't know if any quarterback without possession, a la Sam Bradford, if it's going to work. I mean, you could see that when Peyton's even rushed, because his offensive line ain't as good as it's been over the past few years, that he even sometimes looks like a bad quarterback. And you see with Russell Wilson, too, that he looks flustered now, that he doesn't have the offensive line that he's had in the past, and receivers can't get open. And now you got to hurt Marshawn Lynch out there because you're probably handing him the ball. After, you know, 30, you almost have to hand him the ball 30 times a game to win because you don't have nothing else out there. Jimmy Graham's not even involved in your offense. So you see, that's what happened. I mean, you have to not build a team, not build your team and then get the quarterback. It's build your team and then get the quarterback to run your system right. But even if run your system. If you're going to have a system, run it. And don't be this, if you're going to claim to be a run-first team and then go out there and now your first time you might actually see the Rams be a run-first team is this week. But they had to throw it last week because they couldn't get the ball. They couldn't do nothing. It's kind of what San Francisco had to do and why they got so far behind against the Steelers. I mean, it almost worked for the Bills, but that's not going to work for you in every game. And we know that. I mean, Michael Crabtree went to Oakland? Are you kidding me? Does people really want to play in a stadium where the sewer could break down at any time? Is that where you want to go play? No, it just sounds like the Rams didn't even go after him, which they don't seem to go after any wide receiver, except for the great Tavon Austin, who's I'm gonna start calling the scat wide receiver. So it's nice to see parallel, at least in some of these games in the NFL. And I mean, it does make it for fun TV when different teams get in different years, because then some years you like seeing the different teams. And I'm probably only saying that because I would like to see the Rams do it once in a while, but they haven't done it yet. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back. We're going to talk the NFL next week, and then we'll do a little fantasy thing next. This is the football show on the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the football show on the Greater STL Sports Network. R. Bolsey here with you. Tweet me at R. Bolsey Jr. Tweet the Greater STL Sports Network, Greater STL SN. Now this is what I'm talking about the spreads we were talking about last week and what's been going on. I mean, they're just all over the place. I mean, Atlanta's only getting one with nobody playing in Dallas. I do think. And then the next one you go at, you see Indy versus Tennessee. Tennessee +3, and I think I don't know if you can go against them because what they did in Week 1 and how much the offense put up then for the Tennessee Titans. But I think this is Andrew Luck's week. I kind of think this is the week that Frank Gore gets a little more involved, and I think this is the week you're going to see Andre Johnson step up for them. Definitely against a division rival, a team he's played against before, even though he has played against the Jets before, and he's probably played against whoever they played the first week before. But I think this is going to be his time to come out and jump out and eat, because T.Y. Hilton might be hurt. And then you see this little sneaky game in Oakland, and with Josh McCown supposed to start, I think it's actually a good play to take Oakland 3.5. Because coming off an injury, even though it's only concussion, it's nothing to do with his arm or something like that, how effective is Josh McCown going to be? And then if he has to come out, how effective is Johnny Manziel going to be off the bench? And then also the way they looked last week, and now you got Cooper going, you also got Crabtree going. This could be a whole new look offense for the Oakland Raiders. So it'd actually be fun to watch that game this week. Oakland and Cleveland. Did you think before the year that you would say it'd be fun to watch the Oakland and Cleveland game? Now Cincinnati's at Baltimore. Baltimore is actually -2.5. I think that's a really good play. After what the Raiders did to them last week, even though this is at home, and maybe they'll revamp it up and playing a team like Cincinnati played before. But I think this is the week for Andrew Dalton. And I think that he's at the perfect time because they're playing a team that's kind of been struggling on defense and definitely in the passing game. And this is the time where you go out there and you get an A.J. Jones going and a Santu going. And, yeah, I think that's a good play. So back-to-back good plays, actually. I'm a little worried about that Atlanta-Dallas one at -1. But, yeah, Oakland and Cleveland, and then I would take Cincy at Baltimore. Now, I don't like messing with these high ones. And I know Jacksonville's not that good, even though they did squeak out a win last week. New England getting 13.5 at home. Giving 13.5 at home. I don't know if I even would. I don't know. It's kind of scary to go to a team that did score 40 last week against a pretty good, so far, Buffalo Bills team. And you know how good Jacksonville is. Not that good. So that could be a sneaky one where Jacksonville might play them tough and then you get effed in the return on that one. New Orleans and Carolina at +9, and I think that one might be a little low. But Cam Newton, they haven't been putting up a bunch of points in Carolina, and if you can get your running back going in New Orleans and Mark Ingram or whoever the backup is. I should have looked that up too. Bad prep for the football show. Did good prep in the Rams and Steelers game though. But as a +9, New Orleans getting 9, and if you can get that offense going and moving to Luke McCown, and he's been in this offense for a while, I bet they wish they would have signed Chase Daniel at this point. Actually, have a valuable backup. But I mean, Luke McCown's played in the NFL before, so that could be one where you might want to take a New Orleans getting the 9. Philadelphia, New York, Jets -2, and I think just because the Jets' offense isn't the best offense in the world, that they're only giving up the 2 points. But I think that's a low spread. I don't think Philadelphia has a chance all season. Bart Scott even said he hopes Cincinnati loses, or that Philadelphia loses every game this season. Don't know why he said it. Just seen it playing around on Twitter. So I think they're gonna go 0-3 in that one, and I would take the New York Jets in that one. Tampa Bay versus Houston. Now with Jameis being all over the place, they're +6.5. I mean, they are getting a lot of points at 6.5 points. I mean, that might be a good one to take just because you know it's going to be a low-scoring game. You know it's going to be Houston trying to game manage the ball with Mallett in there, or even if Hoyer's in there, whoever's in there, most likely Mallett. And that could get a guy like Winston in trouble because if they're going back and forth with the ball, he's going to try to make that big play to put his team up, and that might lead to the big play for Houston to where they get into that 6.5. So I probably would take Houston in that one. San Diego and Minnesota. San Diego +2. And that's basically I think that's a pick-up game with Minnesota being at home. Peterson's playing the way he has. And he haven't had the running game there for Phillip Rivers. And even though he hasn't had it in a few years, his best years have been with the running game. And as he's getting older, you would have to get the running game going. So I think that's a pick-em game right there. It'd be hard to pick that one. Pittsburgh and STL, even to the highest I seen was 2.5, over under 48. The over under 48 was one of the highest I seen. Even on one side had him at 49 over under. Might be a good bet to take that under. Well, depends on how many points Pittsburgh scores. You would have to figure out how bad the Rams defense was going to be to do the over under on that one. San Francisco and Arizona 6.5. Go ahead and take Arizona on that one. I don't think that the defense of San Francisco is going to hold up against any team with the receivers the caliber that the Cardinals got with Carson Palmer playing the way he is with Fitzgerald, Floyd, Josh Brown, or John Brown. I don't think that's even close. I'd go Arizona even with the 6.5 San Francisco's getting. Buffalo, Miami. Buffalo +3. Division game, division rivals. Always going to be a close game. And maybe this is where Tyrod Taylor comes out and shines, and you go ahead and take that +3 with Buffalo. Bears and Seattle. Now this is where I tell you they get heavy. And Seattle hasn't been playing that great on offense. And that's probably a plus. Or no, it's a -14.5 Seattle's getting with Jay Cutler's injured. So Jimmy Clausen is what I meant to say. And a quarterback, and Alshon Jeffrey also not playing. I mean, they do have a pretty good running back in Matt Forte, who's really good at catching the ball. And also Marcellus Bennett, who we'll talk about in a minute, as to where they could keep that game close. Definitely if they play defense. Because like I said, unless Jimmy Graham gets involved, this team has nothing else but Marshawn Lynch. So maybe this is the game where Jimmy Graham does get involved, and maybe that's what they see. But I think you take the Bears with that. With Seattle getting the 14.5 points. Detroit -3, another pick'em game. It's Detroit at home. You don't know how well Peyton's going to play. You don't know if they have no run game and they're not blocking that well, what's doing for Denver. And the problem with Detroit is they like to turn the ball over. So you never know what's going to happen. So Denver getting the points, I mean, it's going to be a hard game. With Denver only actually losing the 3 points. Because it could be close because of the turnover battle and Denver not being able to, the turnovers on Detroit and Denver not being able to move the ball. Now, Kansas City, Green Bay is the Monday night game. Kansas City's getting +7. I think that's a little high for the points. But they're basically saying it's going to be like last week's game where they scored 24 and Green Bay scores 31. I mean, that's a lot of points, though, +7 for a really good team. And Kansas City going, I mean, even though it is against Green Bay and Eddie Lacy's got some trouble, but I think that they'll be fine at the running back because they do got a backup running back that's been a starter before. All right, let's move on to the fantasy picks of the show. Is I give you a quarterback, a running back, and then some tight ends, or running backs, or wide receivers after that, a flex. And on today's show, we'll start off with quarterback. I'm going with Andy Dalton against Baltimore and Cincinnati. As I told you last week, Baltimore a lot of 37 points to the Oakland Raiders. And I think with guys like Bernard and Jeremy Hill and A.J. Green on your side, I think it's going to be a good week for Cincy. I also like Indiana versus Tennessee. That means I like Andrew Luck. Is having his breakout party finally. I think it's just about time that Andrew Luck starts playing like Andrew Luck, and maybe even a guy like Frank Gore starts playing like Frank Gore. I would go with the guy that I just wanted to skip over in these fantasy picks, but he does it every week, and I would go with the New York Jets running back Chris Ivory at running back. And it just seems like every week he does it, and you're playing a team that does turn on the ball a lot, and you're gonna want to have time of possession against, and I see them playing another battle game to where they're running the ball a lot, and Chris Ivory is the main back. I also like having Fred Jackson maybe at the flex or something. That's the backup running back in Seattle with Marshawn Lynch being a game-time decision, which there's a big chance that Fred Jackson would get a lot of carries in between there. So I would take Chris Ivory of the New York Jets and Fred Jackson at running back. At wide receiver, he might not be the flashiest guy, he might not be the best guy, but with McCown or Manziel, whoever's in there, I would take Travis Benjamin from Cleveland. And also I would take Jeremy Maclin's from wide receiver KC, as he hasn't playing well over the last few weeks. And I also think that this might be the game where they have to go to him a little bit more because the Green Bay Packers might be looking to go and stop Jamal Charles. I would also take Michael Crabtree having a big week with Amari Cooper finally opening it up. I think he's going to get covered a little more as people see what he can do. But Crabtree did catch some touchdowns last week and gain some yards. But we'll see. But so I'd go with either one of them two guys and any Green Bay receiver as usual. At the flex, I would go with Marcellus Bennett, tight end of Chicago. This Jimmy Clausen's going to have to throw to somebody. And I think he's going to get a lot of it. Forte's going to get a lot of it. I'd also go with Lacy being a little hurt. I'd go with James Starks, Green Bay running back. As this Aaron Rodgers is just so good at getting everybody involved. I bet you James Starks is a key part of that offense. And that's our fantasy picks of the week. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back, preview the Rams game, but also first talk some Mizzou. This is the football show on the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the football show on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr, tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. Well, Mizzou played tonight, and I guess as of now it'd be yesterday night. And they played Kentucky, and they lost 13-21, and it was just a bad game all around for Mizzou. Is yeah, they play great up front. When they couldn't get up front, their quarterback couldn't stop. You got a quarterback in Tiles who last week versus Florida was 8 of 24 for 106 yards and 2 interceptions. To go tonight, Kirk Cousins style, 22 of 27, 249, and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty close to what Cousins did. And Missouri needs to figure out that Ish Witter is not the guy at running back. If your quarterback is rushing as good as your running back and you have to be a rushing dominant offense because your quarterback isn't the best thrower, then it's time to move on. Your best offensive player was your punter. He had 6 punts, 244 yards, 5 of the punts inside the 20. That was your best offensive player tonight. And I'm starting to think that, and I was like, no, you people are crazy. You make no sense. You're not thinking it all the way through. But I think it is time to start maybe 50-50 in with Drew Lock. I mean, he only threw 5 passes, completed 3, 47 yards. And against a team that was just dominating the front line of Mizzou all night. I mean, it's been happening all season. Mark's been running around crazy all season, and I mean, that's going to affect him. But he's 15 of 30 for 180 for 1 touchdown. I threw the ball up a bunch of times. Just threw it up there, hoping somebody would catch it. And a lot of that was because he was getting blitz on every play. But then you had the cornerbacks on there, and they weren't physical. They weren't pressing the wide receivers. The top receiver in Kentucky, 6 for 119 yards. And that's just going to let a team just drive down the field. You had a guy in JoJo Ken, 13 for 66, and that's probably not his name, so don't quote me. It's JoJo something. I didn't write it out all the way. But 13 for 66, and your leading rusher was 11 for 50. So even though it sounds about the same, when your quarterback's so efficient, all you got to do is just run the ball down the field a little bit, and it opens up your efficient passing game. I mean, on third down, they were 9 of 14. Mizzou 6 of 14. Sound a little bit familiar. A little better than the Rams. But when you have to go out there and say your best player on offense is your punter, I mean, that's really saying something. I mean, if I was Gary Payton, I'd literally come into the press conference to say what he went well. I'll tell you one thing, my best offensive player was that punter. Boy, was he good at that. Because that's really all you had. I mean, your kicker finally didn't miss a kick for the first time in about 55 years because he's been on the team for about 30. About 60, really. I said 55 instead of 60. You see that? Bad math. But, man, it just wasn't a game to watch. And it just wasn't. These games, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's crazy. If last week, Florida, a lot of guys that you allowed to throw 22 to 27 to throw 8 of 24. Now, think of what they're going to do to Matty Mark when against these teams. He's only throwing 50%. I mean, it might be 3 of 24. And I mean, I'm being serious. And you're going to have to find something new at running back to give Matty Mark some help, or start giving Drew Lock a shot a little bit more and see what he can do, because you have nothing on offense. I mean, I know your wide receivers suck and they don't catch every ball, but they had to make plays for you tonight just to move the ball because you had nothing else. And plus, he has to throw the ball up there crazy every time because he's getting blitzed on every play. So this looks like you're in a lost season, and you're going to have to hope for Drew Lock next year. I mean, that's literally what I think is going to have to happen. And the problem is I think they like Matty Mark so much that it might be just a 50-50 system next year. But that might work in Drew Lock's favor to where he ends up taking over because he plays that much better than Matty Mark. But you got to start being physical up front on both sides a little more, even though Kendra Brothers, again, another 10-plus tackle game. And just like the DBs on the Rams, you got to be physical. You got to stop wide receivers from sometimes getting down the field. And they didn't do it in this game. Guys were getting right past them, making catches, big plays down the field, like against a Kentucky team that's not that great on offense. I mean, they weren't that great tonight. I mean, on points wise, only scoring 21 points. But you actually made them look decent. Like they were actually, could be a really good offensive team if they wanted to be. And then you look at the stats from Florida last week and say, how did this happen? How do you let this happen if you're Missouri? To where you allow a guy that didn't play that well last week to look like Brett Favre this week. I mean, if you compare the quarterbacks, he made your starting quarterback look horrible. He made your starting quarterback look like Case Keenum. Even back up for the Rams, though, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. But anyways, it's a bad game for Mizzou. I didn't even look who they play next because it might scare me. Probably Florida. So Florida's in there. I'm 100% sure of that. So, I mean, it's a bad loss for Mizzou, and hopefully you pick it up sometime. I mean, that's all you can really say. Now, before I get into the Rams-Steelers game, I want to kind of talk about... I don't want to kind of talk. I'm talking about it for a little second, but the Vikings mascot who's mad that he's not getting paid. I think he wants $20,000 a game. And he's not even their official mascot. He's just some guy that comes dressed to a Viking. I think they were paying him $1,200 a game to just show up. I would take them accommodations, I think. If I just had to show up every Sunday, I get to ride a motorcycle out for free, probably. I get to probably sit wherever I want, just because I was a fan of the team and dressed like an idiot. And now he wants more money, and now he's asking where his counter offer's at, and blah, blah, blah. And they're not going to budge anytime soon. They're probably just going to say, you have a contract, this is what we're going to give you, you sign it. So it's just a funny story that a mascot's fighting with the team. I don't know how that's almost even possible. All right, let's move on to the Rams and Steelers. And for the halfway the Steelers' offense is rolling, they're adding their top back. And one of the top backs in the league, Le'Veon Bell. And don't get it wrong, like their backup is doing something wrong. 204 yards in 2 games. They're adding power to their offense off of suspension. And now the Rams, who allow a third stringer to run all over you, or third rounder pick, but a backup running back to run over. Now you got to worry about really 2 starting running backs. DeAngelo Williams is still a running back starter in this league, as he proved to you. And you know what Le'Veon Bell can do. And the Rams, who aren't the greatest at guarding the wide receiver position, have to guard a guy in Antonio Brown that leads the league with 328 yards in 2 games. Ben Roethlisberger, 720 passing yards in the 2 games. Destroyed San Francisco last week. The Rams allowed 153 yards rushing allowed on defense. What do we have to do to be happy about football around here? To get some kind of break, to go against the defending Super Bowl champions, and then to get just mauled over by Washington. Couldn't we have got the Jacksonville Jaguars? No, we got the Tennessee Titans. We would even love to have them. No, we got stuck with one of the best offensive in the NFL, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, with 3 of the top players at their position in the league in Bell, Roethlisberger, and Anderson, and Antonio Brown. And Le'Veon Bell, Roethlisberger, and Antonio Brown. Then also you guys have to worry about their backup running back, who's a starting running back, and DeAngelo Williams. And I don't know, but I'm probably sure Heath Miller's floating around there somewhere. So for a team that's defensively challenged, it's just like, ugh. Now Gurley does come back for this week, so does that help the offense at all if their offensive line's still bad? That's the problem. Yeah, I don't know. You don't know what's going to happen, and it kind of sucks. And it's going to suck every year, 2 games in the season. Definitely when the Rams played the way they did in Seattle and came back and played the way they did against Washington. I mean, the difference is they were at home against Seattle and on the road against Washington. But a much better team is coming in than either one of them teams, really. And I can say that now, as you've seen what Seattle's done, and you've seen what Washington's done. Pittsburgh's better than both of them teams, and has better players at their skill positions than either one of them teams had. Unless you want to, I guess you could compare Marshawn Lynch and Wilson and Roethlisberger, but nobody on the wide receiver front. And if Heath Miller's still running around, I think that's a pretty fair trade-off, Heath Miller and Jimmy Graham. But what defense shows up for the Rams this week, and what offensive line shows up this week? Is it defensive line that got 6 sacks against Russell Wilson, or is it defensive line that didn't really pay attention to what was going on and just thought they were going to go after sacks, and the guys ran right past them? I mean, that's where you're at in this position in the season. It's only 2 games in, and you've seen 2 completely different Rams teams. And how all the Rams going to go out there and fare in an offensive battle? If Roethlisberger and them drive down the field, can the Rams come back and do the same thing? And you just don't know if they can do that yet. Even though the big thing is they got Gurley back, how healthy is Gurley? And how good is he going to be behind a bad defensive line? Or bad offensive line? And maybe he is the opener. Maybe he's the one that kind of helps the offensive line out by finding his own holes and maybe getting to the outside when the run's called for to go up the middle. I don't know how much cutbacks that they're going to have him do and trying to move around a lot on a torn ACL. You see what happened last year with Sam Bradford when people thought they might have brought him back a little too early. And actually, I think they actually said that Gurley's actually healed a lot longer than Bradford did. So you got to see where he's at. But if he's the game changer, blah, 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 he's in there. What happens when you take him out? So now you have to have Mason or Cunningham step up. But you got to get more involved in the passing game. There's players on this team that need to get involved. And I'm not saying it's Nick Foles' fault. I'm going at them too. I'm going at the Kenny Britts, the Stedman Baileys, the Tavon Austins in the wide receiver game. He's done all right in the running game. Lance Kendricks, Jared Cook, and also the running backs who don't really seem like they're always involved in the passing game. And I know some of that's for protection of Nick Foles. I mean, but this is a pick'em game on all the betting websites, and that the over-under is 48. I mean, I guess a lot of people think this is going to be a 27-24 or a 24-21 game. I mean, I don't really get it because of the offensive power that the Steelers have, but after the letdown in Washington, does the mob squad jump back up and show that they are a defensive front four? Because like I said earlier in the show, that's all the Rams got on their defense is that front four and Ogletree. And when they are able to make the play, the cornerbacks are pretty good. But sometimes they go for the play, or they try to jump the quarterback, and the wide receiver runs right past the first 60-yard touchdown. So you need your strength to be a top-notch for the rest of your mediocre defense to work. And that's the only way you're going to have a chance to win this game is if the front fours has to be dominant. And then you actually have to move the ball, whether it's running, whether it's with screens, whether it's with passing the ball downfield, whether it's with passing the ball short. You have to get some kind of movement on offense to where you're not at 38 minutes of the other team having that time possession, where the Rams only had 22 minutes last week. You're not going to win football games like that. 38 really to 22. There's no way that you can win football games like that, and you just gotta hope that they do something with that offensive line. Maybe practice a lot. I don't know. Maybe make some changes. Maybe put Barnes at a guard position and have Rainey at center, or maybe get Cody Wickman and Garrett Reynolds out there to play. Because what you're seeing isn't going to help the way this Rams team win. Because you need to have some kind of a running game to have your basically game manager quarterback have any kind of shot. Because I never mentioned it before. I always mentioned Macklin and Jackson, but I always forgot in the backfield he had a guy in LaShawn McCoy. They also had a reliable tight end, which you don't have in St. Louis with Jared Cook, but they had it in Philadelphia with Brett Selleck. So you're gonna have to get him comfortable where he has a chance to find whatever his security blanket is, like what you had to do at Bradford and Amendola. But the only way that's gonna open up is if you get some kind of running game. You can't have your top running back be Tavon Austin every game. It just can't happen, or you're not gonna win. Definitely when some of the rushers are just going right up the middle like he's a regular running back. I mean, your top running back on the depth chart can't have 7 rushes for only 26 yards. Your second stringer can't have 1 rush for no yards. And that's partly on the Rams because they had to come back somehow. They had to get some kind of offense going. But it's also on the players to, create your own holes, as people would say. And maybe there just wasn't nothing there because the offensive line was just so bad. And hopefully Washington found something that they seen from the Rams before, maybe last year, because they beat them up so bad that Washington went back and studied the game hard. And they also, the bad blow of Fisher going and sending the captains out there, the guys that they got from the RG3 trade and all that. Hopefully that Pittsburgh doesn't do all that research. Is what you're kind of hoping for, really. I mean, I hate to say it, but you're kind of hoping that maybe Washington had a stick that Pittsburgh does not have. And I just don't see how it could be a pick'em game. I'm not going to give the Rams a chance to win, but I did that a couple weeks ago and they won. So, I mean, I'm just going to say, I guess it's a pick'em game. I guess they didn't see that Pittsburgh scored 43 last week. And the Rams only scored 10. I guess they only see week 1, and maybe it's different with the Rams being at home. Maybe they see something with the Rams being at home, and maybe they like playing in a dome better. I don't know. I don't get it. But, hey, I'm not in Vegas, and that's why I'm not rich. But front 4, like they always want to give you 5 keys to watch. Well, 4 of them should be the front 4. Because that's your only shot. And number 5 should be Gurley. Or the offensive, actually should be the offensive line. And see if they can give you somewhat of a running game, but maybe put an asterisk next to that. And the other honorable mention is Gurley to see what he can do while he's out there on the field. And maybe put running backs right next to that. And don't add Tavon Austin to the running back category. Alright, that's going to do it for the Sports Blog and the Football Show. We'll see you next time. I'm Robert Bowlesby, and this is the Greater STL Sports Network.